Hey guys, I'm going to teach you all about the slope formula. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to calculate the slope from a table, graph, or set of ordered pairs. So go ahead and get your binder, turn to the math section, and let's go ahead and take some notes. Let's start by talking about what we know about slope already. On a graph, we know we can count the slope as a ratio of rise over run. Rise is what you count up by, and run is what you run over to. So let's look at the slope on this line. Aiden has counted the rise to be 6 and the run to be 8. Aiden is right. Pay attention to the scale on here. It's going up by 2s. So if I count rise, I go 2, 4, 6, and then that's over 2, 4, 6, 8. And that matches what he got, 6 over 8. You could also count that down 6 and to the left 8, but since the line is increasing, the slope is positive. So that's how he got 6 over 8. He can also write that as 3 over 4 because those are equivalent fractions. Today, I'm going to show you a different way to find slope from a graph or a table or a set of ordered pairs, and it's going to be with the slope formula. Let's see if we can figure out what Aiden did to get a rise of 6. We know he can count up from point to point to get 6, but how else can he use the 16 and the 10 to make 6? Aiden could have subtracted the y values. 16 minus 10 makes 6. Let's look at this again. This time, let's see if we can figure out how else Aiden could have figured out that the run is 8 using the x coordinates 16 and 8. When you subtract 16 minus 8, you get 8. Now we have the slope, 6 over 8. And that's because we can describe slope as the following. We can say it's rise over run, or we can say that as the change in y over the change in x. So you're going to see your formula written for slope y minus y over x minus x. You may also see it written like this with little footnotes. These are not little exponents. These are footnotes at the bottom. It just means second y minus the first y, second x minus the first x. That's what you see in this picture over here. It's the change in y over the change in x, just like we found rise over run. So if you're given a graph, it might be easier to go ahead and count from point to point. But if you're not given a graph, you're going to have to use the slope formula. In the first example, we're going to use the slope formula to find the rate of change or slope in this table. Right now I can see there are 4 points in this table. We only need 2 points for the slope formula. So I'm just going to pick the first 2 points and substitute the values into my formula. The first thing I do is find the y's. Which of these represent the y values? 0 and 1 or 5 and 5.5? 5 and 5.5 represent the y values. They're in the y section of the table. So we want to go ahead and do the second y minus the first y. I've got that written down. Then I draw my little fraction line. Now this is important. It's the second x minus the first x. The order matters. When you see your numbers in the formula, the point that you chose should be on top of each other. Same for the other point. Just make sure you're keeping them in the same order. And that's it. All you have to do now is do the math. 5.5 minus 5, and then 1 minus 0. I got 0.5 over 1. So you could also write that as 0.5 or 1/2. All of those are the same number. They all represent the slope for this table. So we know the slope is 1/2, and we chose the first 2 points. What do you think would happen if we chose a different 2 points? Well, let's find out. I'm going to use the slope formula, y minus y, on top. So I'm going to do 6 minus 5 over 2 minus 0. Those are the x's that match with each one of these. 6 minus 5 is 1. 2 minus 0 is 2. We get the same slope. Let's do a different 2 points. If we chose those last 2 points, we actually end up with the same answer we started with, which is the same thing as 1/2. So it doesn't matter which 2 points you choose, as long as you choose 2 points on the table, plug them into the slope formula, and make sure they stay in the same order. Let's try the next example, number 2, step by step. We'll use these 2 points. Go ahead and start by plugging your y values into the slope formula. All right, I've got the second y minus the first y. Now let's put our x's into the slope formula, and then go ahead and calculate the slope. You may have gotten 64 over 8. If you chose a different 2 points, you would have got 40 over 5. But whichever points you had chose for your slope formula, you would have ended up with positive 8 as the slope. We know 8 is the slope for this table. But if you had switched the x values, would changing that order change your answer? It would change it to a negative 8. And here's the problem with that. If you start out with the second y minus the first y, and then all of a sudden you do the first x minus the second x, your points don't match anymore. 8 and 3 were not together. 8 and 11 were together. And that's how you're going to be able to check yourself. Keep the same order or it's going to change your answer. And you don't want to get these wrong because of a little mistake. All right, let's practice finding the slope by yourself in number 3. You could use the slope formula, count the rise over the run, or do both to check. Okay, so if I'm counting on this graph, I'm going to count down 10, 20, 30, then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My slope is 30 over 5. Let's check that with the slope formula. I got 50 minus 80, which is negative 30, over 5 minus 0, which is 5. We can simplify this to negative 6. All right, try number 4 all by yourself. This time you don't have a graph or a table. It's just 2 points, but you're still going to use the slope formula. Pause the video now to try that, and then press play when you're ready to check. If you got 3 over negative 1, you can reduce that to just negative 3, because a positive divided by a negative is negative. All right, in number 5, you start to see some negative numbers, and I want to show you this because this is actually really important. It might be helpful to go ahead and write out your slope formula as a template. Go ahead and just write your big division line, put your minuses between them, and then plug in your values. And that includes the negatives. You want to go ahead and still write -2 in. And then the same thing applies to your x's. Go ahead and write your 3 minus, and then keep that negative. You write it down exactly as it's written, even if it looks weird. 3 minus -1 is the operation you're supposed to do here. -2 minus 0 is -2. And you might remember somewhere from your math journey, when you see a minus negative together, that double negative actually means to add. And your calculator will do this for you. Either way, 3 minus -1 is 4. So your final slope can be written as -2 over 4, or you can simplify and write this as -1 over 2. If you put the wrong sign or the wrong number into the formula, it would change your answer and it would be wrong. So you got to pay attention and make sure you write in your numbers exactly as they're written. Last one, go ahead and try number 6 all by yourself. Press play when you're ready to check. You may have got a slope of 2 over 4, which is the same thing as 1/2. All right, 7 and 8 we're going to skip. They're good practice and you can try those, but I'm not going to go over those answers in this video. We're going to do number 9 together. And make sure you have a calculator handy so that we can prove something on number 9. First thing we want to do is set up our slope formula, and then we need to plug in our values. 2 minus 3 we'll put on top, and then the x for both of these is 7.5. So we're going to write in 7.5 minus 7.5. We can do this without a calculator. 2 minus 3 is -1. 7.5 minus 7.5 is 0. But I want you to type this in the calculator, -1 over 0, and tell me what you get. Now, a lot of people think that comes out to be 0, but if you got undefined, you actually did this right. That is an undefined slope, because the graph would look like this. So if you're ever using the slope formula and you see a 0 in the denominator or the bottom part of your fraction, that means that the slope is undefined. So that is literally what you would write for your answer, undefined. The slope formula will work every time, but if you're ever not sure, you could always graph it. And if you graphed this, you will be able to tell really quickly right away that this is a vertical line, which is an undefined slope. All right, guys, that's it. If you made it to the end of this video, I want to know if you could choose any celebrity to go shopping with, who would it be and why? Today we learned all about the slope formula, so now you should be able to calculate slope from a table, graph, or set of ordered pairs. So now you should go ahead and go back to the calendar and put any other assignments you have left for the day. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye!